Hi, um, welcome in UAP Afrique. We are Thursday, 4th of September, and this is the first time that I make an English-speaking podcast on UAP Afrique. But if you speak English, it's good. Just I tell you that my English is very correct. It's because I'm French Gabonese. I was born in Libreville in Gabon in 1982 from black Gabonese father, diplomat, and from a white French mother, teacher of piano. And my name is Jan Alexander, and so I'm a singer, I'm author, and in November 2023, I founded UAP Afrique. UAP Afrique is an organism, and with Sanson Marulolo Alija from Togo, Lomé, we decided uh, to speak about the point of view of African people about UFO, UAP, aliens. Because sometimes African people don't understand the Western narrative, and they need to analyze this question with African culture. And so I can give you, for example, this fact. A lot of skeptical people in Europe think that UFO, UAP, you can say flying saucers, this is secret program, secret military program from United States after the Second World War II. But when you speak with African people, some Africans say, this kind of flying saucers, our ancestors saw this. Uh, our big ancestor saw this. This phenomena is known in Africa since a lot of decades, and not only since 1947. And that's why it's interesting to talk about the point of view of African people with UAP Afrique. Nevertheless, this is a French-speaking channel. But sometimes we have people from Nigeria, from Ghana, from South Africa, from Namibia, from Kenya, from Caribbean islands, who are very interested about that. So that's why I thought it was an interesting idea to exchange with people from ICER. So if you don't know ICER, I will just put the link of ICER in the chat, and it will be in the description of the video. And for me, ICER is very important. How we so the ICER, this is International Coalition for Extraterrestrial Research. And now tonight, you have three people very important for me. First, we have Gary Heseltine. This is the vice president of ICER. We have Francisco Mourão Corrêa, excuse me. This is the representative of Europe for ICER. He lives in Portugal. And we have Professor Tim Murithi from South Africa. He represents Africa in ICER, South Africa in ICER. So, Gary, Francisco, Tim, bonjour, bonsoir.
Bonjour. Thank
Bonsoir.
you for inviting.
Thanks to you for your presence. I want to begin with you, Gary Heseltine. Sorry, Heseltine. This is a good pronunciation. Yeah, thank you. Sorry for the mistake. Just tell me, you are the vice president of ICER. Just can you tell to when ICER was founded and why you choose to be in this organism?
ICER has kind of a strange history. It really began in 2017 when Roberto Panotti, the president of ICER, and was invited to China. And with Don Schmidt from America, the Roswell researcher and author. And originally, it was the Chinese that were trying to get a number of nations together to form kind of a coalition. And the original plan was that it would be through China. Now, we were told unofficially that there was some Chinese involvement, officially, but essentially it was a Chinese UFO group that seemed to have some influence and funding, and it was going to be trying to create a disclosure group of countries. And that transpired, that led to a 2018 conference in Moscow, of all places, that was partially funded by Russians and Chinese. So it was kind of an odd mixture. So I was with Don, Roberto, and a number of other people that went there as like representing several different nations. And a basic set of rules were kind of worked out on moving forward. Now, at the end of that, the Chinese basically said, we'll come back to you and we'll organize a big conference in China. And so we waited and nothing happened. We waited a year later to the anniversary of the Moscow conference, and we'd still heard nothing. Then we were told that the political climate wasn't right for the conference to go ahead. And then, of course, we then entered to the COVID years. And during the COVID years, we're talking 2020, basically by then, some 18 months after the Moscow conference, we'd already contacted a lot of European and South American, North America, Canada, etc., and approached various people who we thought might be interested in creating this coalition. And so by the time that COVID kicked in sort of March, April 2020, we probably had approached maybe 14 or 15 different people to be possible national representatives. And they all seemed keen, but unfortunately the Chinese initiative, for want of a better description, failed. And so during COVID, it's then that everybody started to use Zoom and I guess StreamYard and Skype and whatever to stay in touch with relatives. And I was stuck in the house like everybody else was, kind of thing, during a British lockdown. And I suddenly thought, well, what a waste it would be if we don't use the momentum that we'd built up to utilize this moment where we can actually speak through technology very easily now, face to face. And so Zoom really took off during that time. I took out a pro license Zoom account, and then I started setting up meetings with all the people we'd spoken to. And I said, well, come on, let's get together. It's the blind leading the blind, but why can't we do this and create an organization ourselves? And cutting a long story short, a number of people came on board with that. And very quickly, we had sort of 19, 20 different national representatives identified who were willing to participate in the coalition. So then we chose a name. The initial name was changed. So we ended up with the International Coalition for Extraterrestrial Research, ICER. It's a good name, easy to say, easy to remember, I guess. And so we launched technically in May of 2021. And Francisco plays an important part in that, because he was the one that actually registered ICER as a non-government NGO organization, non-profit, in Portugal. He's based in Portugal, and he actually registered it. And we have this kind of famous photograph within ICER where he stood there, albeit during COVID. It looks like he's robbing a bank, He's got a mask on, and he's with a colleague that's with him. I guess a lawyer, a solicitor, but they're effectively registering, and that's when we become a real organisation and a real NGO. Within months, we were taking on other people, and now we're about 28 national representatives on 4 continents, I think. Unfortunately, we don't have many in Africa, so we were really pleased when you came on board, and obviously Tim Murithi with South Africa, which is obviously a very big country in the state of Africa, in the continent of Africa. So all in all, we're about 28 countries. Now, what makes ICER a bit different from what I suspect are other major UFO organisations is that we see ourselves as educators, trying to influence, I guess, through education, and try to prepare people for what's coming, which is what we believe is some kind of announcement that we're dealing with a non-human intelligence. Disclosure is the popular word, but ICER comprises of academics, scientists, and leading UFO, UAP researchers from around the world. So, but I think our kind of remit, as time has gone on, is to prepare people through educational courses that we've been developing over the last few years. So that's our real remit and how ICER came into existence.
Thank you very much for this good general presentation of ICER and an explanation of your presence in the history of ICER. I remember ICER, the first time I read something about that. Effectively, indeed, it was in June 2021, because this is the same month where the Pentagon published 141 pages. Oh no, not pages. It was 141 cases of UFO sightings, and maybe I saw something about that on the website of ICER. So I remember, because I was very surprised that a big organization with a geopolitical aspect could exist. It was very new for me, very new. But you can tell to people that you wrote a book, and an interesting book. Maybe it's not the first book, but it's about a famous event in the history of United Kingdom, and so this is Redelshan.
Yes, in February 2023, I released a book on Amazon, self-published, called Non-Human, the Rendlesham Forest UFO Incidents, 42 Years of Denial. And for those of you in the French-speaking world who aren't aware of Rendlesham Forest, it's arguably in the top 5 cases in the history of the UFO subject worldwide. Many people would say it's probably second only to the Roswell incident from 1947. Yes. So yeah, it was. I did the book. I'd been researching it over a longer period of time. Basically, I got asked to get involved in a documentary as the lead researcher in 2017, and I started to accumulate so much information that I thought it's never going to end up in a documentary. There's just too much material. So I ended up writing a book. I did 5 years of research, and the book took 3 years to write, culminating in the publication on Amazon in February 2023. And the response I've had in terms of both researchers and the public alike has been very flattering, humbling, and nothing short of 5-star excellent. So I'm very humbled by that.
So for you, Gary, Rendlesham, it's a question of non-human intelligence.
Yes, I mean, I was for your listeners, I was a former police detective for 19 years, a police officer for 24 years. I was an advanced interviewer of suspects and witnesses, and I basically did a cold case review of all of the published Rendlesham material that I could find, as well as re-interviewing and identifying new witnesses through my research. And cutting a long story short, I unearthed a hell of a lot of information that I wasn't aware of, a lot of old publications, little obscure little UFO publications, but involved some very early interviews that people have forgotten about with some of the military witnesses. I spoke to a lot of researchers who'd done previous work on it. I identified people, military witnesses who had already been interviewed, but I thought that with my interviewing skills, I might get them to reveal more. And for several of them, they did. Very pertinent information. So I guess I used my skills as a cold case review, and I ended up in the conclusions of saying that there were 17 different timed UFO incidents, 17 different events over what I now consider to be about a 7-8 day period. The first event now being brought forward to the 23rd of December through a new military witness. So it's a cluster of events, but all of them cannot be explained. Not one of them can be explained under any terrestrial explanation of a balloon, a helicopter, plane, a hang glider. You're talking about various different types of objects like glowing balls, a red flaming object like a beach ball size that likes a ball of flame, but it's under control, low to the ground, moving very slowly, to another object the size of a car that's red, glowing with a black center that looks like an eye winking at you, to triangular objects on the ground, to a delta-shaped object shimmering in a second landing that was being filmed, I might add, on movie cameras. So it's a huge story, and it's still evolving. And a lot of people get frustrated with Rendlesham, especially when I read comments that, you do a podcast and people comments and so, the story keeps changing all the time. Well, the reason why the story changes a lot is because more and more information through researchers is being gleaned from probably new witnesses and other witnesses that have been maybe re-interviewed and got more information. So it's a constantly evolving story, and I'm still convinced that there are many more important witnesses yet to come forward, because we know many more people were involved. But it's a very complicated case, because most UFO events are just one sighting lasting X amount of time. This is at least 17 different events, and there's probably many more, at least 17 different timed events over a 7-8 day period. We don't generally have that kind of event. The closest you could probably think about it, closest to it would maybe be the Colares incident from the Amazon in Brazil in 1997, where that arguably is just as good a case, maybe better, because that went on for several months, and a lot of the local villages were being attacked with beams of light. 1 or 2 people died through their injuries. The army came in and did a 4-month-long study. So that's a major case. But not many people really are aware of the significance of Colares. And the other one that I'm thinking of is maybe Virginia. You get beings seen by some girls. A creature is recovered by the army. One of the soldiers who touches the body of the creature later dies, and that's all been corroborated by the doctor who dealt with the pathology on that. So these cases are well known within the UFO community, but they're not particularly well known by the public because people don't talk about them. So unless you're really an enthusiast, you won't know about these things, how important these cases are.
Thank you very much. We'll talk again about England, society, people from United Kingdom, about their relationships with this strange subject of UFO. Sure. I will talk with Francisco. How are you?
Fine, thank you. And thank you so much for the invitation to be here and to have the opportunity to talk about our organization, which is ICER. And yeah, thank you so much.
Pleasure is mine. You live in beautiful city of Porto.
Indeed, that's a good photo of Porto, indeed.
And so, can you tell me why you are in ICER? Why do you represent Europe in ICER? I know that you was an activist before 2021, but why this obsession with UFO?
Well, since my childhood, I was indeed interested in everything related to astronomy, and specifically about the possibility of intelligent life elsewhere in the universe. And that was a fascination. That was a real interest to me. And I read many books. I was very interested in everything related to science fiction, etc. And I was fortunate enough to meet the pioneer researchers here in Portugal in relation to UFO cases. And so that led me to a good friendship with them, to being colleagues with them. That opened doors to meet military men, specifically in the Air Force, that had sightings, their own sightings. And although this was a hobby, it was later in life that I became really involved, almost professionally, because I deal with this subject every day now. And yeah, I met Portugal is almost like a case study in the sense that we do have two former chief of staff of the Air Force that had their own sightings and were interested enough to involve civilian researchers to help them trying to solve the mystery. One specifically, General Lemos Ferreira, he was not only Chief of Staff of the Air Force, he later became Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, so above him only the President of the Republic. And he had a sighting in 1959, a 40-minute period sighting, and because of that, that was so marvelous to him that he allowed, not only he followed other cases involving the military throughout the decades, but in 1980 he allowed for a protocol that involved the Air Force and the military in general, and civilian researchers. So back then, back in the 80s, the military were less dependent on the political side, the political will, and so it was indeed possible for this. And so it allowed civilian researchers, my colleagues, to go inside the air bases and interview pilots, etc. So very well conducted research for several cases involving the Air Force. Because I started meeting several people, specifically then outside of Portugal, through a network of colleagues, I was invited also to participate and be part of the production of documentaries for the National Geographic and the History Channel. And then eventually I met Gary, I met other people, and suddenly with this interest to form the the international, back then was the World Coalition for Extraterrestrial something. It was not World Coalition for Extraterrestrial. It was I forget. WCEC.
WCEC.
Okay, but yeah, and we started talking. We started having meetings to put this forward, to make this happen. What Gary already told, and eventually because of the work I had done in the past, because of my contacts, because I had help from some lawyers, everyone agreed that we could try to register ICER in Portugal, and that was it. We had the help of some lawyers. What is seen on that photograph, Gary, was my colleague Joaquim Fernandes, who served as a witness, because in the process, although it was during COVID, there was the need for at least 2 witnesses for initiating the process. And it was a long process because we had to collect the identification of everyone that was part of the founding members of ICER. So that led to the collection and certification of signatures and documents from everyone involved. It was a long process. Specifically, everyone was sending me the documents from New Zealand, from the US, from Canada, etc. And it was lots of work, but it compensated, of course.
Yeah.
And yes, and we had to, as an organization, we had to establish a board, an executive board, a fiscal board, and a general assembly board. And that's why we decided among us, and that there was a vote, of course, to elect these people. And according to the statutes, every 3 years, we need to proceed to elections to re-elect people to the different boards. And basically, that's it. I've been involved in many different organizations, also with exopolitics, which it's a muddy water because there's too much speculation around exopolitics. Although the study itself of the implications for society, for the discovery of extraterrestrial life, implications in terms of religion, economics, sociology, society, etc., and how are we going to deal? What policies will derive for this interaction with other intelligences? And it fits in part the work of ICER as well, preparing for the next step, preparing for contact. How are we going to deal with them, whether through citizen diplomacy, one-on-one, or through government diplomacy? So interesting times ahead, lots of study and to research.
Thank you very much. It's very, very, very interesting. And we talk later about Portugal and UFO and same things, behavior of people in Portugal about UFO, especially since the case of David Grush. And Saubona, Murithi.
Saubona.
So, I hope that the sound is good.
Let me check.
Yes, we can hear you quite well.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much, Murithi. Just tell me, so you are in Nairobi in Kenya, but you work in Cape Town. I know Cape Town because I studied in Cape Town in 2004. It was about the effects of apartheid about the territory, and I had to study the case of Stellenbosch. Because Stellenbosch was a town where apartheid was
It was invented. Yeah.
Yes, was invented, but it was the last town in South Africa, the last middle town in South Africa, which applied the policies of apartheid. It was very strange because apartheid was in 1948, but the really strong apartheid in Stellenbosch, it was around 1969. 1968. So it was really interesting. I have some question in the chat, and I will give you the question after. Just
Sure.
for UAP investigation. Thanks to be there, and good evening to Geneviève. Welcome. Um, so Timothy, just tell us why did you join ICER?
Well, thank you very much also for inviting us to this discussion and for the important work that you're also doing to raise awareness about UAP, UFO in Africa. So I am currently the South African representative of ICER, and basically I came to this through some of my writings in the media and also some presentations um, on South African Broadcasting Television, and colleagues in ICER, especially Francisco, I should say here, and Gary, invited me to basically interview, I think, with them to discuss, my interest in the field of UAP, UFO, and also explore what we can do in Africa to raise awareness and raise the profile of this issue, and also do some research around this, very important issue from the African continent. So, as a researcher with about 3 decades of experience in the field of conflict resolution, peace building in Africa, and currently professor of African Studies, University of Cape Town, and also Stellenbosch University. And I have authored academic books on peace building in Africa, but I'm still working on my first UAP book on Pan-African ufology. So that is still a work in progress. And following the release of the UAP videos in 2017, I wrote a number of articles in the South African media on the UFO UAP phenomenon, including the Mail and Guardian, Daily Maverick, which are available online. And then I also, more like in the subsequent years, so 2023, I gave presentations at the Society for UAP Studies Limna Symposium in February 2023, and then in July 2023 at the annual Anomalous Aerospace Phenomena Conference convened by the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. And I've also presented to the UFO Research Group in Queensland, Australia in January last year. And also been interviewed by the South African Broadcasting Corporation on TV. It's available on YouTube, and Talk Radio, Cape Talk 567 and 702 Talk Radio, and also ICER's very own podcast on YouTube, which you can also access. And in Cape Town, we tried to convene a Cape Town UFO group for discussions. The interest is not that high, regrettably. People are just getting on with life and trying to survive, and the UFO issue, I think until they see, extraterrestrials walking into the room, I don't think people are very easily convinced, unfortunately, in South Africa. But my interest in research is the historical context of Pan-African ufology, conceptual issues around how Africans perceive the extraterrestrial family, I would even say, inter-time visitors, other dimensional visitors. And the phenomenon in Africa has got a very long history. If you go back to the Egyptian hieroglyphics, you will see the flying saucers depicted already in the Egyptian hieroglyphics, North Africa. The experiences of the Dogon people in Mali and their connection to Sirius B, which was a planet where we believe some of the visitors are from. And the Dogon people believe that they have a connection, historical connection with Sirius B. And then I've also looked at the archaeological findings of the Anunnaki presence in Southern Africa, some of the work of Michael Tellinger and his research. And then looked at also the work of some of UFO practitioners like Cynthia Hind, who established
Yeah. Yeah.
UFO Afri News in 1980. And
Yes. Yes.
and then that is available online for those who are curious.
Yes.
Cynthia Hind, Afri News. She also wrote a
Indeed.
book, UFOs over Africa. And then I also have looked at the experiences of the Ariel school children in Zimbabwe, which was also very well documented and also written about in the media. And then in Southern Africa and other parts of Africa, we have the shaman or the spiritual guides or spiritual teachers. One of them was named Credo Mutwa in South Africa.
Yeah.
He was an indigenous healer, and he talked a lot about a reptilian agenda that is now playing out. And so my hope one day is to put some of this into a short book on Pan-African ufology, to contribute to raising awareness, resetting the human mindset, getting ready for engaging our interstellar visitors. And obviously, for me, it is a privilege to be a member of ICER, and I really commend Gary, Heseltine, and Francisco for the incredible work they do. And just trying to keep up with them. They're very fast on this analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. But tell me, Gary, Francisco, Tim, did you experiment something in link with UAP, UFO, non-human intelligences in your life?
For me, I had a childhood sighted at 16, not of what I would call a spaceship or seeing aliens. I saw a bright white light on a summer's night walking with my then girlfriend. I was walking her home. It was a lovely August night, and this object was set against the background of stars. The object was moving right to left, relatively low altitude in the sky, maybe a 60-degree angle. And as it passed by us, all the housing power was cut off. There was like a power cut. All the housing light went off. It went a bit further. There was another power cut. It was moving very slowly in the direction of my home. And so, cutting a long story short, I ended up using my bicycle that I had with me at the time to try to chase this light. And eventually I managed to get ahead of the light, very close to my home, which was about 3/4 of a mile from the original location I'd seen the light. And the light power was still on. I rushed inside to my parents and said, "Come outside. I think there's going to be a power cut caused by this strange light." They didn't move. They why would they? Anyway, so I go out into the garden, the back garden, look back at my house just in time to see the object coming over my rooftop. And I was at the bottom of the garden, and I don't know why I do it, but I raised my arm as if I was like answering a question in class, I guess to make a 90 degrees. And as soon as the object went past my arm, the whole area is plunged into darkness. And that's ridiculous. How could I predict a power cut? And so I realized that at that time, having moved to a second geographical location, that whatever the light was, that light must have interacted with the power grid, because it was ridiculous for me to be able to predict a power cut. So that's where my interest began.
I understand. And you, Francisco?
Never, ever had any sighting or experience. Just pure curiosity and interest from my side. I don't feel a need or a desire to have an experience or have a sighting. I don't need that to prove anything. I do have a real interest. I'm sure, and well, it is what it is. But I'm absolutely sure from everything I heard, from all the evidence that we can gather from all around the world throughout history, that we do indeed face one or more non-human intelligence around us, so interacting with us. So yeah, just pure interest to know more about the subject.
It's a beautiful interest. And you, Tim?
Yeah, never ever. Also, same as Francisco, I've never seen it, but the stories that began to come out in 2017, as an academic researcher, it was quite very interesting. It was if this is real, then it changes absolutely everything, you know. And then I started to research it and to see, if I could find out more. Obviously, seen lots of different images on social media. But every night I am looking out into the sky. I tell my wife, one day we will see one. She's often laughing at me. So it is the nature of what it is.
Every night you can see under the bed too.
Aha. Yes. That is true.
Yeah. Unfortunately. I have a question from a practical point of view. In ICER, how do you educate the public and governments?
I'll take that one, if I may. Well, what we've been doing over the last 4 years is creating educational courses. So we've already created and ran successfully an evidential history, which is free to the point of access. It's a very basic history of the subject going back 75, 80 years. As to why we think that we're dealing with something that's non-human, and we've done one of those courses. There's another one going to be in November that I'm about to announce. We're also in the background developing other courses, more specialist courses, because I think the idea is that imagine if tomorrow there was a big announcement from, say, President Trump and said, yeah, we are dealing with non-human intelligence. We don't really know what it is, but it's there and it's been seen by a lot of our military pilots, etc. That would come as a huge shock because of the stigma that's been attached to this subject for literally 60, 70 years, and which has been very successful. A deliberate lie created by the Americans has been very successful. But we're at a point now where there is so much collective evidence from around the world that that's almost an untenable position to hold. And we're very close to a brink, I think. And so if there was an announcement tomorrow, unfortunately, 95% of the world thinks there's probably nothing to this. Yes, they might think there's life out in space because of the enormity of the universe and the number of stars that's been discovered, etc., and solar systems and whatever. But the vast majority don't really have any genuine knowledge of the subject. So if it was announced tomorrow, the world is really going to have a level of ontological shock because it's not what they expected. And they're not going to be expecting this announcement. So once you make the announcement, it then raises so many questions for mankind. And even the most ardent skeptic will say that when and if that situation ever arises of a major acknowledgement, that it would be the most profound moment in human history. So it's incredibly important. So if it happened tomorrow, the world's basically unprepared, apart from enthusiasts like us that have took time to read up on the subject. But the vast majority of people haven't. So that's not just the public. That's the business world. That's the religious world. The vast majority of people will just not know where to get their best information from. And unfortunately, good and bad with social media. Yes, the internet has given us great access to material, but as we all know, there are lots of downsides with the social media because people are unlicensed. They basically can say, I'm a self-proclaimed expert, never done any research, but this is that. And there are some powerful voices out there that people are easily taken in. So where do they go for their best information? So I think ICER comes into its own in terms of an organisation when we're literally on the brink of that, or when we're just entering the disclosure world. Because I believe that a lot of countries will think, we didn't know anything about this. Who do we go to for an educational? We need some background information. So that's whether it's be business, whether it be military or whatever. Unless you've been briefed on it, you're not really going to know anything. So you're then going to look around and think, we need to get our head around this. We need to start educating the public, but we also need to find out ourselves before we can educate the public. Well, who are you going to go to? So I think that's really where ICER plays its prominent role, or will be more prominent as and when we go into that disclosure world. Because I think they will look around, they will find ICER online, they will realise that we've got educational courses prepared, and they will then say, well, teach us, and we'll cascade it down to our business people, blah, blah, blah. The world will be in a very different place, because for obvious reasons, it begs the question, where do we come from? Have you had interactions with the earth before? Are we seeded? Where are our human origins from? It raises all these profound questions that can only happen once you're into a disclosure moment. So I think that ICER comes into its own when we're on the brink or at the start of the disclosure process, major announcement, where countries, governments, business departments will look for people with specialist knowledge, and hopefully ICER will then come to the fore and be used as an educational organisation.
Very interesting. This is a big challenge. I have a question from Genevieve, and she asked, she thinks that maybe this is a problem of, in French we say terminology. It's a problem of the good word, and maybe we shouldn't talk about belief in UFO, but maybe we should use an expression like integration of the UFO phenomenon. What do you think about that?
Well, personally, it shouldn't be on belief. We're past belief, because as a former detective, I deal with evidence, and there is circumstantial evidence, which is very powerful. It's which most cases present in any court in the Western world rely on circumstantial evidence cases. You very rarely have all the evidence. You have pieces of the case, and you put that towards a jury, and then the jury make up your mind. So the circumstantial evidence case in UFO terms is hugely powerful in terms of the best evidence from around the world. If you think of, say, the nuclear shutdowns with Malmstrom Air Force Base in 1967, there's corroboration for that. Robert Salas, other missile shutdowns. You've got cases from all around the world that are corroborated by important people, many military, etc. So when you look at the best collective evidence from around the world over the last 75 years, which is what ICER have done, and this is what we put out in our courses, it's overwhelming that we're dealing with a non-human presence. Whether it's non-human as in extraterrestrial, interdimensional, is another argument. But are we dealing with something that's non-human? Then very definitely the evidence says collectively yes. And so it's not really a belief anymore, not for those people who know the subject.
Thank you very
But
much.
if I may also add, the question of belief and the question of the terminology and the stigma involved comes also from decades of this disinformation.
Yes, indeed.
Trying to discredit not only the researchers, the witnesses, the entire subject. And so there was indeed a policy to try to almost deny the existence of the subject, deny the existence of the witness, deny the existence of the information. And so, yes, the society was indoctrinated to go to that path. It's the lunatics of the UFOs. right? It is only people that believe in strange things, in anomalies, are the ones that follow the UFO subject. And so, yes, we do need tools, and it has been a process since 2017 where the stigma has been a little bit erased, but we need more tools to work on society, to bring awareness, to change this mindset from the society.
Yeah, we agree. This is your objective. This is the objective of UAP Afrique too. You are more and more in the chat. Welcome to Sylvie. Welcome to Tristan from Cameroon. Tristan Routier wrote some papers for uapafrique.com. So I'm very happy to see Tristan in the chat. I'm very happy to see Sylvie Geneviève. Thank you very much. It's very nice. Tell me, we first with Tim Murithi and after with Gary and Francisco. Tim, in South Africa, have you noticed a change in people's attitudes towards this subject over the past 2 years? 2 years, because I think about David Rush.
Yes, I agree with that. That information has been in the news in South Africa. I think most people say yes, it's fine if they exist, it's okay, but we must see them. We haven't seen them yet, so they don't want to do the research because they have other things they want to do. But in South Africa, I think it's important to say that culturally there's a spiritual dimension to this as well. This perspective of otherworldly beings, is influenced by a strong religious views. The religious views are strong that they continue to replicate the stigma and the ridicule, and therefore the low level of interest in the phenomenon. And I also sometimes I just ask, so you believe in angels? Yes. You believe angels have wings? Yes. Do you believe angels can fly spaceships? And then they say, no, they cannot fly spaceships. I'm like, I don't, okay, I don't see the question. Surely the angels can do whatever they want to do, and historically, the Khoi and the San people of South Africa in the Kalahari Desert, their shaman believed that it was possible for them to open portals to transmit into other dimensions. And their shaman, they said they were able to have out of body experiences, and travel to other dimensions, So it's within the culture at some level, but because of a lot of the modernization of society also, and the strong religious beliefs that are currently held within the society, it's not an easy conversation to have until, for example, there's much more irrefutable evidence that is completely, that is visible for all to see, And I think the history of the Dogon peoples is very interesting because in central Mali, because they believed that they received their astronomical knowledge from the Sirius star system. And this knowledge was received even before what we call the modern systems were developed in terms of measuring and analyzing, as astronomy and the sky. And I think so. We have all of these interesting entry points in Africa where we can use cultural, sometimes spiritual entry points to talk about the subject, which I think we should definitely consider going forward in terms of raising awareness and linking it to the evidence, hopefully, that will be coming out. Yeah, we're still waiting, but hopefully sooner rather than later. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, but do you think that South African society, which was impacted by apartheid, is ready now for a total otherness?
Yeah, look, I think I don't know if the levels of surprise would be so high. Because even amongst the children, and I talk about with this to my daughter who's 12 years old, I keep saying, it's important for you to start getting informed about this. The aliens, the extraterrestrials are coming. And she says, yeah, okay. When they arrive, then we can have a conversation. In the meantime, you know, I'm going to go on TikTok. And so I think there is a level of cultural awareness, even amongst children. The adults have seen the reports. They talk about it. It's not a scary topic anymore. They don't completely dismiss it, but they say, show us the evidence. And then you can either say, okay, here is the list of all the interesting things, but they say it's still very circumstantial. We don't have the physical. They want to see the physical evidence.
Yeah,
And
I
as
understand.
Gary said, it might be too late because it might be the ontological shock might be real if all of a sudden you have a Pleiadian walking in front of you and you have to have a conversation with them. It can actually shock the system. But I think we must not underestimate the level of which culturally it's now a little bit more polite to talk about it. It's not the strange topic around the dinner table anymore. It's not a strange topic at schools, at the workplace. Even in our workplace, I have tried to introduce one or two seminars for the staff members, and most of them are like, "Yeah, that's great. Be very interesting," but they haven't like really fought hard against it. Some of them link it to their religious beliefs again, as I said. Especially Christianity,
Mm,
Islam, and so on and so forth. I've also tried to introduce it at the University of Cape Town with the Center for Social
yeah.
Science Research. And I asked the director, can we have a seminar on this at the University of Cape Town? He said, there's not a lot of evidence that we can refer to. And I said, look at all the academic pieces that are now being written about the UAP subject. They're now easily in the hundreds, if not 200, different academic pieces and journal articles, respected journal articles as well. And there is still some resistance because he's a bit of an older guy, he's in his 60s, mid 60s, and he's still like, he wants to see the evidence can
Mm.
allow such a seminar to take place at the university. But we're still pushing, and we have our Cape Town discussion group where we try to meet once a month to talk about different experiences, how we can help to raise awareness more within the society. And whenever something interesting happens, I try to get onto the media and also speak about it, to raise awareness about the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And for you, Francisco, I have the same question. Did you notice such change since the Rush case?
Well, I don't know if you know this, but Portugal, which was founded or got its independence in 1143, remained as a monarchy until 1910. And in 1910, due to a revolution and the assassination of our king, the republic was implemented. And because it was very tumultuous in those early years of the republic, at a certain point, there was a dictatorship that lasted until 1974.
Mm-hmm.
And so after the revolution that liberated or ended the dictatorship, there was everything that was unknown, that was new, was of high interest for the society, and specifically UFOs. So in the middle 70s, late 70s, there was this resurgence of interest. Although there were books written about the subject almost in clandestine in the 40s and 50s, the big interest became in the 70s. So, for instance, there was the first Iberian UFO Congress between Portugal and Spain that was organized in the Faculty of Economics at the University of Porto. And there were thousands of people there. It was absolutely full. There are still photographs of that event. There were magazines, there were groups, study groups all across the country. But since then, there has been a steady decline of interests from the society. Sometimes there's a resurgence, but then it falls. And so there's been up and downs. Back in the day, we could measure the interest not only by the number of subscribers for magazines and the UFO clubs and groups. Nowadays, everything is dispersed over the internet. It's more difficult to measure that interest. Although, for instance, when this documentary made for the History Channel Iberia between Portugal and Spain, it was a co-production where I was involved. It was called Extraterrestrial and Extraterrestrials. And this is on cable, and that specific channel has a share of audience about 2.5% back then. And with this specific documentary, it went up to 8. So it was very big, very good interest from the society, from the general public. And that meant that other seasons were approved for being released, for being produced.
It was National Geographic, no?
The first was National Geographic,
Yes.
where Gary also
Yes,
participated, and Roberto Pinotti and Erling Strand.
Yes,
It was
I remember.
UFO Europe and Told
Yes.
Stories.
It was very, very good. I remember.
But this one was specifically for the History Channel. It was another
Okay.
documentary, a different
Okay.
one. And it had very good ratings. So that was also a measure to understand that there was still a good interest from the public, but it goes up and down, up and down. When
And
we
now?
try to up and down, when we
Yes. Yes, but now in
but now,
2000,
right now in 2024, again, when we try to do some kind of conference, for instance, it's difficult to motivate people to come.
Okay.
So that is a measure of interest.
Yes, but
People are more
maybe-
lazy. Are
yeah.
more lazy to go and see, be present at a physical conference.
Okay.
It's
But we could say that this is the same thing, for example, for the concert, for the piece of theaters.
it's different because if for football or soccer, for concerts, depending, of course. But the big names, if they come, people will pay whatever they ask to go and see the concert. Right? For a UFO, it's again, we have had in the past, like Gary, when he came, we had 120 people more or less for in one of the venues in Middle Portugal. It was quite nice, and we had for instance, when Stephen Bassett came, it was a little bit less. When with Richard Dolan, it was more or less the same. It didn't reach 100 people attending. So
and
it was free.
Of public? And it was free, but what kind of public is it? It's all public. It's
no. It's more or less. It's broad. It's teenagers, middle ages, and old people. You can find different people.
Can you say that because I was in Lisbon in 2017, and I was very impressed because you have a lot of people of color from Africa, from Brazil, from Mozambique, from Angola. It's like
specifically in Lisbon, more in Lisbon than in the rest of the country,
and,
because we had those colonies, Angola, Mozambique.
Of course,
they were Portuguese colonies.
Yes, and it's like Paris, but for example, in public with Gary, did you notice presence of people from Africa, for example, or it was only white people?
In those conferences, no, it
Yeah.
was mainly white. Yes,
Okay.
mainly white. Yeah.
Okay. And Gary, I have the same question for you. Did you notice a change in the United Kingdom since David Grush case?
Um, I would say that in some ways, the UK has gone backwards since 2017 with the New York Times article that, and the three videos, the Tic Tac Gimbal and the Go Fast videos came out, which has kind of accelerated things in the United States. But unusually, Britain, who has always had this special relationship with America, has usually followed on pretty much whatever they decided on any major issue that they would more or less agree. Well, the strange thing is that since then, the British attitude has gone backwards. Yes, there is still some media coverage, and it's in many ways it's better than it was, but there is certainly not been the level of interest that you would have thought with all the people like David Grush and military witnesses coming forward, Carl Nell, Rear Admiral Tim Galladay, etc., all saying that it's 100% we're dealing with something non-human. You'd think that it would have much more sway, but strangely, it's not. And I can only think that that's a deliberate ploy, because it doesn't seem natural to me that that would be the case. We've always followed on America, but on this issue we haven't. So that's a bit odd to me. Yes, there's still some coverage, and it is better than it was. For example, I recently, only a week ago, reviewed a new documentary that was on the BBC iPlayer. Well, obviously the BBC is a very well-known news channel, etc. And the documentary about UFOs wasn't bad, but it's what they didn't tell you. They don't lie overtly, they just don't give you the best information. So it had a lot of things in there that deserve much more coverage. And so all in all, it was maybe a 3 out of 10. I use a very simplistic scale, but a 3 out of 10. But in the past, it would have been a 1 out of 10 and ridicule. So it has moved on in some regards, but it's still not getting the coverage, the mainstream coverage, that really all the things happening in America, it should really be covered a lot more, and it isn't. And it's surprising.
Oh, Francisco disappeared. I think this is an abduction.
Yeah.
We had a direct abduction now. This is exceptional. No, I'm joking. I hope that I'm joking. I hope it's not true. I will, yeah.
Just to as
You're welcome. I am suppose that you was abducted.
No, I don't know what happened, but I just suddenly I was out.
Yeah, maybe, but it's not, I'm not paranoid, but we have a lot of story like that during direct live on YouTube channel about UFO. You have
there are things
some weird things. It's very interesting, but maybe it's just a technical problem. We can say that. I will show you a picture because yes, this book.
imminent.
Did you read this book? Eminent. Murithi, did you read? Gary, did you read? Francisco,
Yes,
did you read?
I have the book. It's a good book.
Yes.
Yes.
So
The book.
because you read this book, I read this book, so we can think that this book was a very big success in the world anyway. And we have a French translation too, and maybe there is a Spanish translation. What do Tim, Gary, Francisco, what do you think about this book?
I'll take the lead. It's a very good book.
Yeah.
Luis Elizondo. I've exchanged emails with him over a period of time. A lot of people had reservations about him, but to me, he always came on the right side of history, as it were, and so he's done nothing wrong to change that opinion. So I think he is a good guy. Obviously, the fact that he actually went last year and gave testimony at a US witness congressional hearing, and he put it all on the line. So he really was the real deal. And obviously, he told his story of how he got involved and basically reviewed the UFO situation around the world, and basically has kind of tried to, I think, re-educate, especially the American public, that it's not just an American topic. A lot of Americans are so insular, they think UFOs are only seen in America, which is ridiculous, but believe it or not, some people do think that. So I think that, he went around the world. He has done various TV series to try to say, look, we're dealing with something that's very real, that it's in the air, whether we like it or not. They seem to have total impunity as to move about in the airspace, but also he kind of introduced the concepts of transmedium, which meant that it was air, space, and obviously underwater. And historically, a lot of UFOs have been seen coming in and out of large bodies of water all over the world. So, he's been good for the subject. Does he have an agenda? I guess he probably has. I don't know what that agenda is, but from what I can see, he did what he said he was going to do, is try to raise the issue to like a world level, and he went to many countries and has tried to raise the issue, and the book reflects that, and I think it's a good book. I don't think it's the best book that's out there. I have personal favorites like UFOs and Nukes by Robert Hastings, which is for me, one of the top 5 books ever written on the subject, purely because of the nuclear link and all the military witnesses that he got to go on record. Richard Dolan's book, UFOs and the Natural Security State, his first volume and his second volume, but particularly the first volume, I think, as a former historian, which he was, a mainstream historian, he wrote UFOs and National Security Volume 1. It dealt with that early period up to about 1970, and all the political way it was dealt with, and how it went from the 40s to 50s, 60s. And a really, really excellent book, so I'd recommend anybody who wants to know the best information, that's a good place to start, those 2 books. But Imminent's very good. You've got Ross Coulthard, In Plain Sight, good book.
Yes, Plain Sight, yes.
So there are lots of good books out there. But yeah, I thought Imminent was a good book. Not a great book, but a good book.
Are you agree with me that in 2023 we had David Grush, and in 2024 we have Imminent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think David Grush and the 2023 first witness congressional hearing with David Grush, David Fravor, the military pilot, and then Ryan Graves, the military pilot, had a real impact at the time. Sadly, the summer recess allowed the naysayers and the Pentagon to fight back. But when it came out in early July, I think it was 2023, that had a real impact in world stream media for a couple of weeks. And David Grush has never lost credibility. In fact, he's been, fighting for his credibility because the Pentagon tried to besmirch his background. There was basically a hit piece on his medical record, but that was just done to try to lessen the impact of his testimony. But a lot of people just don't realize how good David Grush was, in the sense he was the guy that walked across to the White House with a folder under his arm and then passed it to the staffers who would then brief the president. So he was the real deal in terms of the intelligence official, and especially with his military background. And fortunately he's now working, I believe, for Eric Burleson, one of the congressmen in the UFO caucus in the Congress, and I think he's got his security clearance back. And I think he's playing a key part behind the scenes now. You're not really heard from him that much in terms of interviews, but I think that will change over time. But hopefully now he is back in the fold, closer to Congress. That I hopefully think that this upcoming hearing next week, which features George Knapp and then 3 first-hand witnesses who are lesser well known, but it'd be interesting to see what goes on. And I'm hopeful that by the end of the year there might even be some people who should be there, like the Eric Davises, the Hal Puthoffs, the Jay Strattons, the Chris Mellons of this world, going on the stand and giving testimony in a congressional hearing. So there is rumours of others being planned, and some even may be subpoenaed to attend. Let's see, but I think the lineup is pretty interesting, and let's see what happens next week. I didn't think personally that the 2024 congressional hearing with Lou Elizondo, Mike Gold, Michael Schellenberger, and who was the other one? Admiral Tim Galladay. It was partly good, but it didn't have the same impact from 2023. So we need to get back to a really good, hard-hitting hearing. And we've talked about Immaculate Constellation, this real, reverse engineering and crash retrieval program. It's real. A lot of people are telling it's real. So I think people now really want to hear from first-hand witnesses who were involved in crash retrievals and also involved in reverse engineering from captured, recovered craft. So I think that's where we're at, and I hope that there'll be more hearings to address that.
Tim, Francisco, are you agree with Gary about this global analysis?
Yeah, I do. In terms of the book, I read the book. I have it on my shelf as well. I think it's it's a good book, but I think there were higher expectations. The book carries the name Elizondo, and so for someone that pays attention to the subject, basically it's almost like a biography of what happened since Elizondo came to the public. You basically have a map of everything that happened with him since. It's not a book for a newcomer, for someone that suddenly realizes UFOs exist. So it is for someone that already follows the subject, in my view. So I like the book, but it's not the book.
Okay.
It's not something that will make a difference for the general public, in my view. The second, I lost the track about following the question about the book. What was the theme? What did you talk about, Gary?
Well, I basically
the
congressional hearings.
The congressional hearings. Yeah, I mean, again, since 2017, there has been this buildup. There has been this promise of hearings, and so yeah, good information came out. It's interesting, or it's important that at least the subject is being discussed at high levels in public. Here in Portugal, some of the mainstream media caught attention for the hearings, but there was space also for debunking. There were a few issues regarding the witnesses or regarding things that that's more or less tainted, or the expectations again were so high that, given the fact that there was nothing revealed that was new, in fact, that the mainstream media lost interest in it. And so, yeah, at least here in Portugal.
Yeah, I can echo that. I have presented this book to the Cape Town discussion group, UA4 discussion group, and just to show them that there is some written text on this issue that they themselves can go and start reading. And actually, I bought this book at the South African bookstore, exclusive bookstore down in Cape Town. It's called the Exclusive Books, and I was surprised to see it there. But they also have Ross Coulthard's book, and the Harvard professor, Stella. So it's a sign that again, people are slowly having access to this information. And I think in terms of the book, we have to remember it was edited by the U.S. government, so they were able to remove anything they thought was too, controversial or revealing. He had to put it through a whole system, and it took time to get out. But I think for us, it's important to have something like this you can actually reference and say, okay, just have a read about this and see what you think. Ross Coulthard's book also more accessible, I think. But for those who have a lot of information, they're not really saying anything new. But the novices, they're useful entry points. And in South Africa, I think it's because he's American and he has appeared on television and you can access him on YouTube. I think it's probably a useful. It's a useful book to have around and engage people with. Thanks.
I must say for the public that Murithi is not the Mr. UFO of South Africa, but he was in an interview with the biggest channel of South Africa, SABC, to talk about the case of David Grush and about the lack of react from African Union is still a big problem too, because, for example, we have some reaction from European Union since March 2024, but for the moment on the African continent we have nothing. I just say that In Plain Sight from Ross Coulthard is a very good book, but I have to say it's a frightening book. And for me, it's more frightening than imminent because, anyway, so UFO, it's weird. It's a weird phenomenon. But it's frightening the attitude from military people, from the army, from the elite in English. I don't know if you say elite too. Yes, okay. And so it's very disturbing. And in this book, you can, for example, you can learn that we had UFO crash in Afghanistan, for example, in Russia, in a lot of part of the world, and not only in United States. Okay. We'll finish very soon because I think it's late for you. I'm very sorry because it's very interesting. But just tell me, Murithi, do you know the story of the crash in Lesotho?
No, I'm not familiar with that story.
Okay. I had two questions. Do you think anything will happen in the next 2 years?
I personally think yes. I think we're reaching the tipping point where there is just too much information and too many people coming out. In recent 6 months, you've had Jake Barber come out, who says he's involved in crash retrievals as a helicopter pilot. You've had various other people come forward who claim to have worked on retrieval programs and know firsthand of reverse engineering aspects. In recent months, you've had scientists like Hal Puthoff say that the US is in possession of at least 10 UAP craft. Who's never said anything like that. He's the most famous scientist for the last 40 years on the subject, so for him to say that is unprecedented. Eric Davis, again, said publicly, he's one of his colleagues, known, worked on the subject, the UAP subject, for 30, 40 years himself. He too, to a congressional discussion group in a room in Congress, publicly said that there were 4 species that they were dealing with, 4 species of alien, which, we're talking about the greys, reptilian, Nordics, and insectoid. Now, this is like science fiction, but this is a guy who's worked at the sharp end of science on the subject. Why is he saying that now? And there's a very sought, eagerly waited documentary called The Age of Disclosure, which features Marco Rubio, who's the serving Secretary of State of the United States. He is amongst many other politicians and senior people within the UFO world. And one of those is a guy called Jay Stratton, who, again, he's not one of the obvious names, but Jay Stratton used to run the UAP task force. So again, if this guy doesn't know, nobody does. And he says in the trailer for The Age of Disclosure that he has seen non-human craft and non-human bodies. So, this is unprecedented, and it has to lead to somewhere. You just can't keep having all these people coming forward and it go nowhere like it has done in the past. So I think we are reaching a tipping point. I think the President Trump's administration has got waylaid on the UFO subject because of the world issues with Gaza and the Middle East, Ukraine, Russia, etc. And so I think it's been put on the back burner. But at some point, it's going to come up. And I think when it comes up, don't be surprised if things develop quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also on the same opinion. There has been a build-up since 2017, and there's no going back. I mean, there's people are demanding more. There are more and more, including academics. We have Wolfsburg in Germany. You have Javi Löb. You have the Nordic Physics Institute where Beatrice Villarroel. You have the Durham University, which has also promoted some conferences around it. So there has been a growing interest, a fading of the stigma, and people are demanding answers. And I think it's difficult to put some specific timing for it to happen, but it will definitely happen somewhere in the future.
I agree too. And Tim, what do you think
about it? Yeah, I agree. I think I agree with both Gary and Francisco. The momentum, the train has left the station. The momentum is building up. More and more people are getting onto the train. And yes, I think if the US government is not so distracted by other things, maybe this will happen eventually. The hearing coming up 9th of September is very interesting. Congresswoman Luna, and they have slowly been releasing the JFK files, the Martin Luther King files. I think the UAP files are next, and hopefully there's some traction here. But we also need to do what we can do to get the people to actually come out into the streets and demand more information from governments. There's unfortunately we are waiting too much, and we're hoping that the politicians are going to release the information, and the politicians, they always look out for themselves first. So it'll still be part of a struggle, but it's fascinating to think we're here almost 8 years after the 2017 release. So it's almost a decade of this slow process, but I think we'll get there for sure.
Yeah.
And what are the plans? What are the projects? Sorry, of ICER in the next following months?
We've recently passed a new mandate, and one of the things that we're going to do, there's going to be a couple of educational courses that will go out. The basic evidential history, probably November and maybe January, February. But we're also looking early in the new year, probably around the springtime, to have our own ICER online, probably a 2-day event, where many of the brilliant people that we have in ICER will get a platform to give lectures and do our own online conference. We've never done it before, so we may well make mistakes, but you've got to start somewhere. And online conferences do get some traction, and obviously there'll be a live stream element to that. So there are a number of things ongoing behind the scenes. We're obviously still watching developments. This year has been a bit of a frustration with developments in Congress, etc. But it would seem that things may begin to develop, and may develop quite quickly after the September hearing next week.
Thank you very much. I have to say, though, for the public that first, I encourage you to visit the ICER website. It's a good website with interesting information, and you can financially support ICER at the bottom right on the screen when you arrive on the website. What can I say? Okay. A nice word from UAP investigation. Thank you, gentlemen, for this discussion, and to Jan for this international initiative. I have to say that I represent Gabon in ICER, indeed. So actually, you have 2 people from Africa in ICER, and it's a nice thing. Even if I have no time to do everything what I want, and it's very hard, and I think this is the same thing for you.
May I say something, Jan? I just want to thank you and applaud you for taking this initiative to get 2 African representatives together. This is, I think, is historic in the sense that I don't think it's happened before. Do you think that, Francis, do you agree with that? That we haven't had a platform where 2 of our African representatives are on at the same time. So well done, Jan. Let's see how it's received and give us feedback. And one thing that I would say from the vice president point of view to Tim is, you talked about you try to get interest at the University of Cape Town, I believe you said. Well, offer this. If you wanted me to run the evidential history course online live to an audience streamed at the University of Cape Town, I'd be happy to do that, and you can join me and help me with that. But if you set that up, we could give them an evidential history course over maybe 2 sessions of 3 hours or 2 hours, and they say, where's the evidence? Well, let us show this.
Exactly. I'll put that to them. 100%.
Yeah. If we don't ask, we won't get. But I'm exactly. Certainly, want to offer that hand of let's see if we can move something forward and show the evidential history course that we've developed, because they will probably be very surprised at just how much evidence there is and knowing what evidence is.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Mr. Thank you very much for this moment with you. I will tell goodbye to the public, and anyway, I think that we'll have a lot of people in the replay I think. I don't know why, but I think it's possible. And so just I will cut the podcast, but please stay online just between us. Thank you very much.
And
Thank you,
thank you for
Sophie.
the invitation. Thank you to
Yeah,
your audience.
thanks.
We need more people from Africa. We need to raise awareness from the African people. It's a very big continent. It's the biggest
Yeah,
continent, right, in the world. So we
yeah,
need
maybe.
more cases from Africa, more stories from Africa, and we need more people engaged in the
Yeah,
subject and
yeah.
raising awareness. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being interested in this, and big strengths to Tim Murithi and young Alexander for doing your job the best way you can.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.